My bottom line is that first we should concentrate on getting our authorized strength of 42 by making our mitigation plan work. Now, if I go in for 114 aircraft and sign the contract today, and the contract fructifies in 4 to 5 years, I will get the technology which is existing today. Chinese and Pakistani aircraft, we don't even know what is the actual capability. Claim capability is one, but China doesn't disclose very. They're not in displayed anywhere or taken part in any exercise where you can evaluate, or they have not taken part in any operations. And on paper, they can be claiming anything. Now, if you are reliant only on one country and that country changes his mind because interests keep changing, trends keep changing in geopolitics. Tomorrow he says, I'm not going to supply you anything, you're sunk.
Hello and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Achint. Today I am once again proud and privileged to be joined by Air Marshal Anil Khosla. Air Marshal Anil Khosla, PVSM, AVSM, VM, is a retired Indian Airforce officer who served as the 41st Vice Chief of Air Staff. He has clocked over 4,000 hours flying different kinds of aircraft like the Jaguars, the MiG-21s and the Kirans. He has vast experience both in ground attack roles, in interdiction, as well as specializes in maritime roles. Thank you, sir, for joining me this afternoon for a discussion of the future asset acquisition plans of the Indian Air Force.
Thank you, Aadi. I enjoyed the first session recording with you, and I must say your questions are very, very pertinent and incisive. I mean, I'm quite impressed. Very, very pertinent and valid questions. Okay, so I'm looking forward to this second session with you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Pleasure's mine, sir. I'd like to open out with a discussion which, as in the last time also we mentioned, you mentioned the number 42 squadrons. This is something that we've been hearing for a long time. We've got a shortage in terms of the numbers right now, in terms of the types and numbers both. My question to you is not about one reaching 42, yes. It's also about, is that 42 number enough for the requirements of tomorrow?
Yeah, very valid question, and there's a lot of debate goes on, and especially in last year and a half, this debate has really picked up quite a bit in terms of how many squadrons do we need, how much, is it sufficient, not sufficient? Then second school says, people of second school of thought, we have induced so much of technology. Why do we need so many aircraft? I mean, technology should offset the numerical strength. And so this debate goes on. So let me take a minute or two to give you a little bit of background. As I said, authorized is generally 42. And a lot of think tanks, a lot of individuals have done a lot of studies, which I'll cover subsequently in brief. So consensus is the 42 is the authorized strength and required is 45, but the actual strength at the moment is 30, maybe going down to 28 because of the older aircraft are going out of service. Okay, Air Force always has a mitigation plan. That means mitigation of drawdown. This is called drawdown. I mean, drawdown means strength is reducing. And mitigation plan for drawdown is, broadly speaking, is Su-30 induction was on. When I left, there's some aircraft was still left, 272 aircraft were contracted for, all 272 hadn't come in. So leftover Su-32 induction, then 2 squadrons of Rafale, which are coming in now, gathered from the media, 21 we'll have by end of this month. That's quite a good number and quite fast. And then 83 LCA, Mark 1A have been signed recently. Then case is on for 114 MMRCA. Then we are looking forward to about 6 squadrons of Mark 2 Tejas. Then we're looking forward beyond that at AMCA. So this is a plan. But what happens is this plan gets reviewed periodically. Why it gets reviewed periodically is, unfortunately, the induction doesn't take place at the rate at which the drawdown is taking place. So we have to keep reviewing and make mid-course corrections. Okay, why we have reached this low stage or low state, I will not comment into, but I'll briefly cover it. A combination of various factors. One is, as we last time we said, the debate between gun and the butter. So maybe priority-wise, development takes higher priority in spending money. Then threat perception. threat perception I covered earlier. What are the adversaries? Okay, I'll cover a little bit more on this subsequently. Then comes the question of affordability. Do we have the money economic part to buy it or not? Correct? Then we need to give boost to indigenous capability. So is the indigenous capability good enough? Is it matching with our aspirations? Is it producing enough in numbers as well as quality? So these are various factors. One more factor, if I have to add, although I would like to avoid, is this fear. Actually, it is a fact. It is a fear of going into large contracts because of the controversy which is generated unnecessary. So what happens is the people who are involved in the procedure for procurement, they become very cautious. So the whole thing slows down. So these are various factors. I'll not go into too much of detail. So as I coming back to the question, so this debate goes on that we have got such a high technology now. Why do we need so many numbers? Okay. Now, this is not a simple, straightforward calculation that we need 42 squadrons. It's a dynamic figure. Okay. The figure depends on a lot of factors. First is the threat perception. How many enemies do we have? We have two enemies. Last time we covered, we are into two fronts, 2+2 fronts actually. Now, if we have two enemies on the northern front and the western side and the northern side, what are their capabilities? If their capability becomes double, I can't continue with my earlier figure and say, yeah, okay, I can take them on, right? If their capability increases, I need to increase my capability. Secondly, not only their capability, their intentions. So far, China was quiet. So the perception was that, okay, with China, Pakistan, we can handle. China is quiet, so it's not going to make noise. So this much is okay. But in the last year and a half, they've shown their true colors. They've shown their aggression. They've shown their belligerence. They've shown their attitude. They've shown their intentions. Now I need to wake up. I need to become more muscular. I need to add to my strength. So it is not only a question of enemies or the adversary's strength. It is also his attitude. Okay. So that combined makes the threat perception. Second, as I said, affordability. Okay, do I have the money? Is my economy doing well? Okay, China, how has it become such a big power? Because the economy joint. Economically, they've gone up. So obviously, military power also increased. Third is the geopolitical situation which is prevailing, regional, world. What is the geopolitical situation? So these factors define all these combined. How many squadrons do I need? Or how much strength do I need? Now, as I said, various studies and individuals have done various reviews. If you see the think tanks and go into this, especially the air power related think tanks in like CAPS, Center of Air Power Studies, and some other ones, the figure varies from 45 to 60. Okay, that much of variation. And they have their own logics. My point is, at the moment, I need not go into those studies. At least let me get to 42 squadrons, which is the authorized strength. Then I can talk about something else, which to my mind also getting back to 42 will take quite some time. It's not that overnight you can have so many, we can't afford it. You can't buy it. Even if you could afford it, it's not the off the shelf that you go to market and buy those planes and come back. You have to sign a contract. The manufacturer needs time to open up his factory, to build those aircraft and give you 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. Right? So my bottom line is that first we should concentrate on getting our authorized strength of 42 by making our mitigation plan work. And in the parallel, we do a study or do finding out what is the strength required at the moment. And then we say, okay, this is what is required. But at the moment, immediate thing is we should reach Now, I'll take a minute more on this. This is my personal opinion once again. A lot of debate also goes on, why are we going in for abroad, why not local and indigenous and all that, Atmanirbharta and indigenous industry and all. My take is, we need to have a balance. When I say balance between quality and quantity. Okay. There are various ratios, 30, 40, 30, plus minus 5, 10, where you have 30 top state-of-the-art aircraft or platforms, 40 refurbished, there is a particular word I'm not coming to my mind. I mean, they are all these upgraded aircraft. Okay, and third is the low technology aircraft which are on the way out. So this ratio needs to be maintained. So we need to have a balance between quality and quantity. So while reaching quantity, we should maintain the balance of quality. Why I'm saying this is will come subsequently during the discussion. Then next is Indian Airforce has always been encouraging indigenous production and Atmanirbharta. Okay, contrary to the belief, which I'll cover subsequently. So like Tejas, Mark 1, Mark 1A, Mark 2, AMCA, we need to develop them. That is the final long-run solution. My take on the immediate thing is that we should go in for this 114 MMRCA. We cannot afford, we cannot get in immediate this thing. My personal view is while we are supporting the Tejas and the other platforms, we should go in for 2 more squadrons of advanced aircraft immediately. That means 2 Rafales are coming in, 2 more of advanced aircraft we need to go further immediately. And now we make our mitigation plan work, and also now we in parallel we work out how much is our actual requirement and review further. That is my personal take on it. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my question to you was on the Rafale fact. My question to you was on the Rafale factor itself, and this is something which comes out to be the easiest, I would say, permutation a person can come up with. We did this with the Mirages as well. We brought a first batch and then we ordered the second batch. Is it that there is a plan to do something like that for the Rafales? Because 36, yes, they are good, they are brilliant aircraft, but a number of 72 would obviously be much better. I mean, we will be able to cover pretty much the entire part of the western as well as the northern region with these aircraft and with decent numbers. So what would be your opinion, sir?
Yeah. So actually it's an offshoot of the previous question where I left. I can continue from there. As I said, 114 MMRCA will cost a lot of money, and at the moment we can't afford it. And as I said earlier, if you remember in the last episode, Aadi had mentioned that technology infusion is a continuous process. Okay. Now, my personal view also, reason for going in phases is that technology changes. Okay. Now, if I go in for 114 aircraft and sign the contract today, and the contract fructifies in 4 to 5 years, I will get the technology which is existing today. So, prudence demands that I, instead of 114, I go in for say 2 or 3 squadrons now, and after 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, whenever this thing, I go in for another, at least I will get later technology. I'll maybe get better technology, better systems. That is one way or another way of looking at it. Okay. As you rightly said, my personal take is, although I didn't mention 2 more squadrons of Rafale, and I said 2 squadrons of MRCA, but prudence says that why go through the whole process again here? Yeah. We have just inducted, we are in the process of inducting 2 squadrons of Rafale. It's a proven aircraft. We have gone through the whole cycle. We did a very extensive selection process and trials. Looking at us, the other air forces like Egyptian Air Force and all bought the same aircraft, saying that they have done such an intensive trial process and selection process, must be a good aircraft. And looking at us, they have bought it. And if we go through the entire process again, we waste time, effort, money, and pick up some other aircraft, it will be very foolish. So to my mind, we should go in for 2 more squadrons of Rafale immediately. So advantages are, firstly, it's a proven aircraft. Number 2, I've flown Rafale, lucky to fly it in the Aero India, and that aircraft is exceptional. I mean, in every way, in its performance, in its weapons, in avionics, its maintainability, its multi-role, omni-role capability, nuclear, ground attack, AD, maritime, ISR in the same sortie. That is what omni-role is. That means it's doing AD and ground attack simultaneously. Really, the biggest advantage is it has got very good high altitude operation capability, mountainous terrain, and high altitude airfields. And that is what we need. Our adversary is showing effect in Ladakh, in East, high altitude area, Sikkim, and we have a aircraft which is very good in high altitude. This thing, it's got very good standoff. It's got precision, close range weapons as well as far range weapons, both air to air and air to ground. What else can you ask for? It is already in the process of induction. We are already setting up a supply chain. We are already setting up the maintenance infrastructure. Okay, we already operationalized it. Okay, it's already flown in Ladakh area during this standoff. Okay, that was the fastest operationalization. So Prudence says once again, it is already operationalized, it is inducted, it has become part of our tactics doctrine strategy, going for two Moscow rather than going for different. Okay, then this contract already has India-specific enhancements. 8 to 9, you must have heard in the media when the debate was going on, whatever political reasons and all. I'm not going to that. This also came up that it has got India-specific enhancements. So it is tailored to your needs. And if you buy a new aircraft, different aircraft, once again, you'll have to, ask for India-specific enhancements in that. Plus, biggest advantage is, once again, time. Induction will be fastest. So it cuts down on the time. There's no evaluation required. There's no trial required. And that we need things in a hurry, considering the geopolitical situation, considering the threat perception. So I fully endorse that we should go in for two more squads of Rafale. And then we look into our other mitigation plan, as I said earlier, and we review how much we need and what do we need. And in the longer run, Tejas can become a mainstay aircraft, numerically, like MiG-21 was in erstwhile, this thing, and we had specialized aircrafts in MiG-29, Jaguars, Mirages. Now we have Su-30. So Tejas can become the MiG-20, erstwhile MiG-21, that is developed for replacement in numbers, and we have high performance aircraft in Su-30s and Rafales. So that is my take on this.
Agree with you, Stan. As a layman, one thing that I can realize, and I in my industry, we deal with a lot of people. So it'll be easy to train the people. You don't have to send them to France or anything like that. You can just, probably set up a small wing who can start training the pilots within the country itself. And apart from that, the French are already in a flow of making your aircraft. So if you give them more orders, the speed at which the aircraft can be brought into the country will be much faster. I agree with you, so 100%.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons why I asked this, because we did this with the Mirages as well. So I presume we would be doing the same thing again with regards to the Rafales as well. So you mentioned the Tejas. Now, Tejas has been a hot potato for a very, very long time. This aircraft has gone through the rigors of time from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s and now the teens. Coming into now, Tejas, the program has gone through its phases and its role changes and the design changes and so on and so forth. I think one of the questions that people will have once we talk about procuring outside the foreign aircraft versus the Tejas is the Tejas actually capable of taking on the responsibilities that are being thrust upon it today? I asked this because you mentioned that should be the replacement for the MiG-21s, which is aging part of our fleet. So does it have the capability of handling what is required out of it, high altitude terrain, to a desert operations, to probably deep jungles in the eastern sector and some amount of maritime roles also?
Yeah. So basically, Tejas capability is the one question you're asking about. Yeah, I agree with you. The Tejas project, is quite old, 4 decades almost, and 2 decades since the first prototype flew. And development process does take time. And when you develop a aircraft, it's a very complex machine. As I said, without technology, you can't fly in the air. And flying platform is a very, very complex machine. And for obvious reasons, you need to have 3 to 4 layers of redundancy in everything. Failure cannot be acceptable. It can be disastrous. You can lose the pilot as well as the aircraft machine, which is very, very costly. And pilot is even priceless. So obviously, it has to go through the rigors, and making such a machine is not easy process. Yeah, it has come under a lot of criticism also, the whole project, whether the timelines are meeting, not meeting, sleeping. So basically the whole debate goes on into three categories. One is the timelines, obviously. Second is the quality. What are the problems and quality wise, whether matches or not matches. And third is, of course, not to so much, but to some extent, affordability in the sense price range. Like if you're getting something better with lesser price, obviously you will go for that rather than something which you if the price is comparable or things like that. But major debate has been in terms of timelines and as well as quality. So I'll not go into details of that, because the question which you asked is about capability comparatively as compared to other aircraft and all. I'll not like to go into full details, full analysis of Tejas and its capabilities for obvious reasons. But I will broadly give you an idea of your question. I was lucky to fly with Tejas when I was in service. I actually was hosting Defense Minister of Singapore. I was a CNC AC, and in Kalaikunda he had come and he was flying Tejas that day. And we had taken a Tejas to Eastern Air Command and since I was hosting him, morning he flew and afternoon I also managed to fly in that aircraft. Very impressed with the aircraft. I mean, it was good. And also, two things let me tell you before I get into the question proper. One is that, you rightly said in this controversy, also blame game goes on. Yeah. And I've often heard this in the media. The air marshals like to play with foreign weapons. Foreign toys, sorry, not weapons. I mean, it is far from truth. So it is far from truth. It is not that the air marshals like to play with foreign toys. And Indian Air Force has been supporting indigenization from long time. We have lost even a lot of test pilots during the trials and all. If I start naming you the systems and platforms which we are inducted, which are indigenous, I can go on for about half an hour. From HF-24s to a whole lot of trainer aircraft. We have inducted, the sync system-wise, Aadi missiles, weapons, radars. I mean, I can go on for this thing. So Indian Air Force does support this thing. Now, coming to LCA, Indian Air Force has already got one squadron of initial and IOC version, then 20 aircraft in FOC version, then 40 Mark 1As, 2 squadrons, and now 83 Mark 140, and now 83 Mark 1A's contract has been signed for 4 squadrons. So that makes it 6 squadrons or 123 aircraft of Mark 1. Okay. And subsequently, the IOC FOC version will be also upgraded to those standards. Okay. Then we are looking forward to Mark 2, which will be even better aircraft. Okay. And we're looking at 6 squadrons, almost 102 aircraft. So we'll have a strength of almost 231 aircraft, almost 12 squadrons. That's why if you see my comment was, the Tejas can become mainstay of the Indian Air Force like MiG-21 was in the earlier years. Okay, having said that, also then we're looking at AMCA, which is a 5th generation aircraft if we can get it by say 2035 also with the indigenous engine, it will be really good. The engine technology is another thing which a lot of countries don't have. Even China is struggling. They've got a very advanced aviation industry as compared to us. But they're also struggling with engine capability, engine technology. Only very few countries have engine technology. Okay, so now coming back to the question of Tejas. So in my mind, it's a good machine. It's got good avionics. It's got a good weapon suit. Okay, and like in a development process, there always will be glitches. There always will be problems. So it's an evolutionary process. Okay, so there were some shortcomings, about 52 odd shortcomings were noticed, and quite a few of them have been overcome. And the more and more of these are being overcome by the next version. That is why we have IOC version, then the FOC version, then Mark 1, then Mark 1A, then Mark 2. It's a progression. So slowly we are upgrading these machines. So like Mark 1A, we'll have a mid-air refueling. It will have a ISA radar. Okay, it will have a good EW suite, which is integrated with it. It will have BVR capability. The latest news was, Derby as well as Astra both can be fired from it. Okay, it will have good maintainability features. So whatever the problems are coming up, slowly they are getting this thing. And a lot of comparison is going on with Chinese aircraft and the Pakistani aircraft and all. And Chinese and Pakistani aircraft, we don't even know what is the actual capability. Claim capability is one. China doesn't disclose very. They're not in displayed anywhere or taken part in any exercise where you can evaluate, or they have not taken part in any operations. And on paper, they can be claiming anything. Okay, so as I said, it will be a good replacement for MiG-21 class of aircraft. Mark 1A, they are saying is already almost fourth generation, and Mark 2 will be 4.5 generation. These generations are also actually very, very fluid. I've written a whole series on these in my blog. If you take time, read through it, going up to 6th and 7th generation, starting from first generation. What are the aircraft and what are the capabilities and all? It's interesting reading. So, to my mind, advantages are indigenous industry is always useful. 2-3 reasons. One is cost. Okay. Second is availability. If you buy from outside, you will be costlier this thing. Number 2, nobody is going to give you latest technology here. He will always keep the latest with him and he'll give you second-rate technology. Correct? So third is availability. Now, in previous wars also it has happened. You bought some equipment. Luckily, our Indian Airforce has got equipment from different countries. It got a very wide variety of inventories. It's got drawbacks also. It's got advantages also. Now, if you are reliant only on one country and that country changes his mind because interests keep changing, trends keep changing in geopolitics. Tomorrow he says, I'm not going to supply you anything, you're sunk. So indigenous is always better. You've got assured availability. You can ramp up the production when required, increase the numbers. And fourth biggest advantage is what is happening now. Yesterday I heard a news, this thing, that a modified version of BrahMos is being worked out for Tejas, which will be slightly 50% lighter and which will be smaller and slightly smaller in size. Tailor-made for Tejas. So, what is the fourth advantage? Indigenous saying you can integrate anything what you want with it. Whereas if you have outside, not give you source code. He will not allow you to integrate anything with it. If you have Russian equipment, then Western wala you can integrate. If you have Western thing, Westerners will oppose any Russian equipment or weapon being integrated. If you have indigenous capability, you can integrate whatever you feel like. So advantages of availability, cost, latest technology, and also integration of whatever is required. So in other words, Tejas is a win-win situation. In the long term, we need to support the whole program and we need to head towards AMCA, which will be our solution to the future. So that is my take on the Tejas and its capabilities.
Very interesting. So I think the way you've put it across is if a lot of the so-called armchair activists, armchair strategists that you mentioned would actually hear it, they would understand. One thing I really liked about what you're saying is, it is an ongoing process, and for any country to develop something like that on their own without external help is not an easy task. And I don't know if you would, agree with me, but one thing that I personally appreciate about the Tejas program is the initial conceptualized aircraft which was there. And today, what has been actually brought out are two different things. The materials that have been used, and it's been upgraded far and far beyond what was put on the paper, I think, in the mid 1980s. So there has been development in that aspect. So at least we are going to get a latest aircraft with latest avionics. And I have somehow missed this news of a BrahMos being integrated with the Tejas. That's very interesting to actually know, sir. Thank you for that answer, sir. You also mentioned about the AMCA or the AMCA and the Tejas Mark II, sir. You also gave a little bit of a highlight about the timelines that those things are expected in. I'd like you to just dwell upon it a little further with regards to what do we see coming into the Indian Air Force's inventory in the next couple of years to fill up the numbers that we have shot down. One of the things that we realized happening is that the Sukhoi lineup is now coming to an end. They've finished all their 272. I think there were some more replacements that were ordered from Russia in terms of the MiG-29s and Sukhoi. So some amount of work will be there. So with the HAL being kind of free from the Sukhoi work, do you see these timelines kind of getting expedited a bit, sir?
Yeah, this is also a very, very pertinent question, and a lot of mudslinging goes on in this matter, although not desirable, but yeah. Just to give you an idea of the project for Tejas, actually, before that, let me start from where you left. You mentioned that it's a different aircraft from the time it was conceptualized. Now, in the earlier, one of the answers I remember we covered that I told you that I've seen Indian Air Force for 43 years. And in the 43 years, the whole air warfare has changed and whole Indian Air Force changed. The second part of it is related to it is how does it work here? The whole concept works, it's called thing called leapfrogging. It's a very common used term, leapfrogging. So how do you leapfrog? Like a frog, you leap ahead. So that means I have decided at the moment I need this much of strength, bare minimum. As we covered earlier, depending on the adversary's strength and threat and all that. So maintaining that bare minimum strength, whether I buy it or whatever, how do I procure it, indigenous or buy it, I maintain that bare minimum and then I leapfrog. And I decide that I'm going to make this particular aircraft with this capability and technology by so and so year. And when I reach that year, I should have those aircraft in that number and in that quality. It should be at par with where the world has reached at that time. And there onwards, I am along with the world. That's how it should work. Unfortunately, the leapfrog has not been working for us. Okay, so like somebody in a lighter vein said, if the leapfrog doesn't work for too long, a situation will come when you'll have to do pole vault to catch up. So that is in the lighter vein, this thing. So why leapfrog has not worked, there's various reasons. I don't think we need to go into detail. Just 3-4 things. If I tag, why I'm tagging these is because it will give you an idea of your proper question. How do we assure quantity and quality availability in time? Okay, so one is ecosystem. Ecosystem is user, that is the military. Academia, that is your think tanks and your IITs and other technical institutes. R&D, both civil and military, and industry, both civil and military. That is your ecosystem. The problem with us is our ecosystem works in their individual vertical silos. Each one is, answerable to somebody else. There is no cohesion between them. Now, the worst part comes the mudslinging, which I used, undesirable mudslinging, happens when the things don't work out, you start blaming the others. So one of the also blamed put to the Air Force is that you keep changing the goalpost. If you keep changing the goalpost, the aircraft will never materialize. And you intentionally change the goalpost and you keep changing the requirement because you don't want it to succeed. That is far from truth once again, as I covered earlier. Okay, we are not interested in buying from outside. We are also Indian citizens and a very mature and responsible citizens for that matter, please. So we are also interested in success of our industry and technology improvement. Okay, so I will come to this ecosystem subsequently. Okay, second is private section. Private sector participation was minimal so far. So what happens is no competition to this military R&D, DRDO, the other organizations, even industry, HAL as well. So long if you don't have competition, you will find that things stagnate a bit. Okay, that is one of the another factors. I'm not saying the factor, another factor. Third is technology infusion. Technology we have not been harnessing the way we should be. This is another subject we can go on for about half an hour, 1 hour on technology infusion, which is a very hot topic at the moment. What are the future technologies? I just did an interview about a week back on future technology, this thing. I put it on the blog if you want to read. And third is we have a very peculiar situation where these are all dual use technologies. Space, cyber, all the other hypersonics, quantum, space-based internet, AI, nano. I've been covering all these, mentioning them. They're dual use, civil use, military use. In our case, the verticals are very, very divided. First, it comes in civil use, then we try and draw it into military use. The world is moving in a different way. In parallel, we need to work on both civil as well as military use. How to go about it? There are a lot of this thing. Then there is a question of technology infusion by outside in the way of doing business. Our way of doing business so far was very, very restrictive because we wanted to prop up our R&D, or prop up our industry. But in the process, technology infusion suffers. So these are various factors why our leapfrog is not working and is fraught with problems of timeline slippages and quality slippages. That means what we have decided, we are not able to get the timeline. It gets delayed. If it gets delayed, the world has moved on here. The newer technology, better perform, better aircraft, better platforms. We are still struggling to make those. Engine is a classic case, the Kaveri engine. Although a lot of success has been taken in that, but we have still not mastered the art. Okay, that is the meat of the matter actually. Then our work culture, I'm afraid, well known. See in France, yeah. We talked about Rafale. One day early, they will deliver, but not one day late. We see in the induction. Clockwork. In the contract, in the MOU, it is said by so and so date, so many aircraft are reached on that day. If it required, maybe earlier, but not later than that. That is the kind of work culture. So these are various, there are a whole lot of host of factors. Everyone knows about it and they're being addressed. It's not that these are the faults or these are the things. But when the things don't work, then we start blaming each other that he didn't do all his work or that didn't. Anyway. Let's not leave it at this. I'll take 2 minutes more. We need to find out what will work. So we need to have an institutionalized approach for the ecosystem. Country like Brazil or Sweden, hardly any threat perception, smaller countries, but they're exporting technology and weapons and platforms. Why? They have a very good ecosystem. So our ecosystem, which I said, user, the military, the academia, R&D and industry, we need to work in cohesion. We need to work as a team, top-down approach. So as a team, as a cohesion, and in a focused manner. And accountability. So team, accountability, focus, that is my mantra. If we follow, I think this ecosystem will work. Second thing is technology infusion. Okay, as I said, technology from outside and technology from within. We need to start working on the modern technologies of warfare. That is another subject in itself. Where is air warfare heading? Okay, I gave you a small glimpse of it. Third thing is, we need to work on dual-use technology right from the beginning. It's military use. Not that first we develop a civil use and then we start using, working, will be late. It will be too late. So we need to work in parallel. Private participation. Now, government is really encouraging all the MSMEs. Let me tell you, like project like Tejas, there are 17 suppliers, Indian suppliers who are supplying things. There are about 500 small MSMEs, the medium and small engineering units, which are supplying things. Okay, that is a kind of involvement. And sure enough, now you must be hearing, the transport aircraft. We are encouraging private industry to come in. We need to bring private industry. Now the government is listening. Then even your DPP, DPM, that is your procurement process and procurement manuals have been reviewed. FDI has been increased. Offset clauses have been added to infuse technology and to give boost to our indigenous production. So this Atmanirbharta, a lot of steps have been taken by the government and budgets changes have been made. The capital budget has been, there's some specific, also the lists have been made that will not import these equipment, we'll try and get indigenous. Then monetary support we have been given and carry forward clauses has been added. So a lot of steps have been taken by the government in the last 2-3 years. And I think if we follow these, we will be better off in coming years. As coming to the specific, the industry, we need to increase our manufacturing capability. 12 aircraft or 16 aircraft that to slipping per year is not good enough. Keeping the situation in mind, we need to ramp up our production capability, not at the cost of quality, maintaining the quality, not without taking shortcuts. That is a way forward, and that is how we'll be able to meet our timelines required for induction of Mark 1As immediately, then Mark 2s, and then Lanka. And our mitigation plan will get operational and we'll be able to maybe catch up with the rest of the world, and we'll be able to catch up with our capability desired. That is the way ahead for us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I sincerely hope we do, sir, because at the end of it, we do keep talking about selling the Tejas abroad and stuff. The only way we can start selling it is by ramping up the production capability and keeping the quality up. Agree with you. This 16-20 fighters a year is negligible for the size of the country that we've got. At this rate, the 83 will take another 6 years, 7 years for it to come, and that is also if things move at a pace where, at the current pace. In case China decides to become friends back again, the pace will drop back again, and I think that is something that shouldn't happen. So this has been an eye-opener for a discussion. We talked about the Rafales, we talked about the Tejas, which is a topic that a lot of people have extreme opinions about. Either people are extremely okay with it, and either people are extremely not okay with it. So it's one thing that I've seen, what you've told us is a very balanced opinion, a very realistic opinion. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you so much. Once again, sir, thank you so much for this wonderful talk on the topic of our future asset acquisitions and the nuances that go along with it. I think that is the most important thing for us defense enthusiasts to understand. That it's not just picking up an aircraft and flying it, it's also a whole lot of other things that go along with it. So thank you for explaining that to us. And I'd like to, of course, as I said in the earlier part of the video, I will be sharing the Air Marshal's blog address in the description, so please do check it out. Thank you, sir, for joining me this afternoon, and I shall bother you once again with another topic another day.
Thank you, Aadi. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I'll share the blog URL with you. And once again, a parting thought. You mentioned in your closing remarks, you mentioned maybe China becoming friends again. Am I right? Let me tell you, my analysis is China doesn't have any friends.
Absolutely.
Okay, it has only interests. So when China looks at other countries, this is my theory. Firstly, China looks at the world like a cone, not like a globe. So he looks at China as the world is a cone, and China is in the center, and China is on the top of the cone. Okay, when China looks at other countries, the classification, when they classify other countries, they are classified into adversaries or enemies, friends, and neutral. Right? You classify them into enemy, neutral, and friends. When China classifies, they have only two classifications. Either you're an enemy or you're a subordinate. So there is no friends.
I agree with you. As a matter of fact, I say that we should be thankful to the Chinese for waking us up. And he's the only enemy who's come out and said, "Bhaiya, I am your enemy. Please look at me." Pakistan ko chodo yaar, I am your enemy. Please look at me. At least give me that izzat of being an enemy of yours. So I agree with you, sir. What you're saying is absolutely fine. Thank you, sir. Once again.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
See you. Bye.